2017 marks the 20th edition of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally. 20 years of passion in the wheel tracks of one of the most legendary motor racing events on the planet. A vintage that officially pays tribute to the participation in 1967 of the Ford Mustang of Johnny Hallyday and Rmch. In the footsteps of Un homme et une femme, the Claude Lelouch film released on May 27, 1966. 50 years on, there's still numerous to come and fight for the victory, this time at the pace of the average speed imposed by the regularity tests. The Belgian José Larrep has already won 3 times in the Principality. The Italian Gianmaria Agem is also one of the sure values of the event, in the image of the reigning Daniele Perfetti and Ronnie Kessel, who remain faithful to Renault Alpine. Or the German Ernst Jungen, victorious in 2008 in a Mercedes that was much more imposing than his DKW. Or the winner of the 2004 edition, the Norwegian Monte Carlo, who's also prolonged his passion for the Monte Carlo Rally across the years. 50 years later, it's also the anniversary of the victory in 1967 of the Finn Rauno Aaltonen, still sprightly at almost 80 years of age. The Monte Carlo Historic Rally. Nearly 340 crews who start from all around Europe to rally Monaco via a major concentration stage. Glasgow is one of the furthest start cities with more than 2,000 kilometres to go from the north of Scotland. 9 cars take the start to the cheers of an ever-faithful audience. In the beams of the headlights, long hours of driving through Britain, the crossing of the Channel, then the crews will cross France from north to south towards Monaco. At the other end of Europe, a little later, Lisbon this time, the longest absolute course of this edition with more than 2,200 kilometres of asphalt, with on the menu the crossing of the Pyrenees and the most extreme weather conditions. Portuguese capital Lisbon sees the start of 12 cars. They're also in front of a good crowd of enthusiasts. (2,074 kilometres) are on the programme of the 9 crews who start from Copenhagen in Denmark for a journey that will take them first to Bad Homburg and then to Reims before crossing France to reach the Rock of Monaco. Oddly enough, the participants from the north of Europe will experience road conditions milder than those in the south. From Bad Homburg, with almost 2 times less mileage on the clock to reach the shores of the Mediterranean, there's a strong contingent of 60 crews who climb onto the starting ramp in front of hundreds of spectators. And this in a friendly atmosphere that delights the rally fans. A little more than 1,000 kilometres for the route from Barcelona, Spain. The capital of Catalonia has been chosen as a starting point by 106 competitors. A few Seats from the collection of the manufacturer will even take part. We'll talk more about that later.
Renault francès, 4 era històric, pintat amb els colors tradicionals d'aquest pau. De minutes d'aquest pont. A l'equip italià,
It's finally from Reims that we see the shortest distance to Monaco, just over 1,000 kilometres. But it's also the strongest contingent. No less than 136 cars are applauded at the start, with favourites including Carlos Tavares, the boss of Peugeot Citroën, or Daniel Elena, just back from the Dakar. First checkpoint for this cohort of popular cars, mainly from the 1950s through the 70s, starting in the frost of winter from the 4 corners of Europe. Digne-les-Bains, the unmissable rendezvous where we write the first lines in the log, the first anecdotes shared, the Competitors often meet here again from one year to another. Some recipes with a taste of Portugal for the team of chefs out of Lisbon, with, as a dessert, snow and ice in the crossing of the Pyrenees, which Manu Guigaud, who's in his third participation, remembers with some emotion. It was an epic. We had snow tires but no studs. And in the two passes, no, not Turini, but in the Pyrenees, we had 20 or 30 centimeters of snow. It was really nice. To get used to the car, it was great. The armada of the R8 Gordinis entered by Renault's historic department will be completed by Michel Leclerc and Jean Ragnotti and Guillaume Chancel. In return, they pass by the checkpoint to set off towards the first regularity rally zone. And once again, this meeting is a popular success. I'm really happy, especially this year, because there's a big crowd. Digne was a motorsport town, and we've been battling for it to become one again, because for some time, rallies had virtually been banned from Digne. For 10 years now, we've been able to make new ties with the Monaco Automobile Club. This year, especially for the event, they've opened the Col du Corobin and the Col de Fontvin. And it will be on the menu for the next day. But let's not rush, because after Lisbon, it's the group from Glasgow that arrives in Digne. Some are already wearing their tux for the Gala evening. And British humour is probably useful when it comes to running more than 2,000 kilometres in a Fiat 127. But as the owner says, when it's a love story, everything is different.
We love European cars, so this is pretty special. So it's done the Monte Carlo rally 2 times before, and some big rallies, other rallies in Europe, in Corsica. So we wanted to do a very big run from the top of England all the way down to Monaco. This is my first rally ever. I've never done a rally before. However, my partner, David, his grandfather did the rally in 1953, and we have the same number as his car in 1953. He started in Glasgow, but the car broke down in Paris then. So we've done better than that already now. So I think we're very pleased with our progress, and we've had no problems. We've done a lot of work on the car, so absolutely fantastic.
In the meantime, direction Saint-André-les-Alpes, then regularity zone number 1, Entrevaux to Entrevaux, through the Val de Chavagne. The first competitors are already there. Those from Lisbon and Barcelona are already present as the logbooks are barely opened. Saint-André and its park. It's another stage where the first crews are always greeted warmly. This is also where they install the famous Trippy, the satellite system that allows one to locate the competitors for their security and to time them for sporting equity. It turns out to be essential to the running of the rally. And the competition is underway, and José Larrep, the record holder for victories, is not out to finish second.
I've already
had the experience of abandoning if I can't win, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm already happy to have won 3 times. One more time wouldn't be bad, but I have to keep my head on my shoulders. As everyone knows, anything can happen in a rally like this. And it doesn't start so well for the crew of the Opel number 9, who finished 68th in this first special. For nearly 5 hours, the teams follow each other on the roads of the southern French hinterland as they get back into the swing of things. More than a first warm-up, it's the first trends that emerge from this opening zone, because in regularity, you can't make up for errors. In this game, it's the DS of Antoine Rmch and Jean-Claude Lamorlette that moves up to second place in the standings, behind the Golf GTI driven by Daniel Elena and navigated by Olivier Campana, who take the lead on the evening of this concentration stage. The ambitions of the Monegasque crew are clearly displayed upon their arrival in the Principality. On the port of Monaco, competitors follow minute by minute, mounting the podium of the Automobile Club and parking their trusty steeds before taking a well-deserved rest, because the program of the coming days can still reserve many surprises. We're hoping for bad weather in the Ardèche. It's paradoxical, but we prefer bad weather, because the bad weather creates a bigger difference between the very good and the a bit less good. This year, if you want to win this event, you need a very good car with excellent tires. You need an excellent navigator, a good driver, and a car that's in like-new condition, because something always breaks. We tend to forget that in those days, cars broke down. Today, cars don't break down. So, today, a car that's 40 years old is likely to break down, and you can't overlook that. It's the morning of the 29th of January. Barely 6 o'clock as the first cars set out from the port of Monaco. This is the beginning of the classification stage that will allow competitors to join Valence in the Drôme. The night has allowed the crews to recover from their long journey to the Principality. They're rested and ready to start the assault upon two monuments of the Monte Carlo Rally. 9 o'clock sees the start of the second regularity zone between Chaudon-Nohant and Digne via the legendary Col du Corobin. It's a hearty breakfast to open the day because while they're not daunting, the road conditions call for a certain acuity. There's black ice looming in the shade of the Ubac, and judging by their uncertain trajectories, it looks like many are taken by surprise. Even the title holders, Daniel Perfetti and Ronnie Cassel, slide off in this hairpin, fortunately without damage to their berlinettes. The roar of this Mazda RX-7 from 1979 wakes up the surrounding countryside, driven by the Latvian Carlis Mikkelsen, who's bewitched by his rotary engine.
The history, as far as I know, the Mazda RX did two rallies in 80s, 81 and 80, as a Group 2. And therefore I decided to take this car as a next car for the rallies. And that's it. And the second reason is the Wankel engine, something unique. So the life is so short, and you know, these are the toys for the guys, and we have to do some fun. Everything is important in this rally. This rally is quite difficult, and is kind of world championship for the rally, definitely.
This Toyota Celica 1600 from 1972 also draws attention. The Nippon Coupe transports more than just its own history. The father-daughter crew is all too evocative of the values of this rally. I started to rally when I was a student in Japan, and my dream was to take part in the Monte Carlo Rally. That is why, today, I have entered this historic edition. Alongside Toshi, his daughter Nagiko, who lives in Paris. Suffice to say that they don't see each other often, and they have a lot to share. Honestly, it's my first time participating in a rally. I've never done that. And the first day, in the morning, I realized it's an average speed all the time, and that was complicated. But I'm already beginning to be impassioned by rallying. A discovery which, of course, calls for some pondering. During the exploration of the Camp de Fontbelle, the second day's RZ. A big difference in pace with an experienced crew such as Jean-Pierre Coppola and Françoise Conconi. Very respectfully, the Toyota gives way and allows the Alpine Acrobat to continue its show. It's true that the conditions are right. The ice, a few corners, still sharply bleached by remnants of snow and ice. It's this morning that competitors will encounter the trickier roads throughout the rally. So whatever their weight, their engine, traction or propulsion, one should take advantage. Under a blue sky and in striking landscapes, the historic rally's gradually again bewitching its unconditional supporters. The Col de Fontbelle, peaking at 1,300 meters, was run more than 25 times by the Monte Carlo. And the Sisteron Douar special stage is still considered one of the deciders of the rally. Sisteron is dressed to the nines to accommodate the teams of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally this midday. Year after year, in the specials or during neutralizations, at checkpoints or in the Parc Fermé, the public is increasingly present. At the foot of the citadel that dominates La Durance, drivers and navigators allow themselves a few moments of relaxation before resuming competition. Because we then attack the regularity zone number 4, Orpierre Saint-André-de-Rozan, as the crews are still digesting lunch. Luckily, the special doesn't offer any special difficulty. You can enjoy the views and the atmosphere of the event, all while keeping an eye on the notes, the regulator and the stopwatch. In short, even if everything happens at very reasonable averages, it's not a question of sightseeing, at least for those who are running for the competition. For the observers, on the other hand, the discovery of the beauty of these mountains is one of the pleasures of the rally, notably aboard the A310 Alpine Turbo of Jean-Marc Giraldi and Philippe de Meninck, sporting the colours of the Florjac Foundation. Saint-André-de-Rozan also rolls out the red carpet for the participants, figuratively and literally. A welcome in the heart of the village that breaks with the solitude of the crews during the final kilometers of this sector. But there's no time to linger, because another legend of the Monte Carlo awaits, and where, as at the start of the day, the road conditions are more delicate. The run through the Col de la Charasson between Vassieux in Vercors and Saint-Jean-en-Royans is embellished with a spectacular zone of snow and ice that will top off this day's drive to Valence. And if it seems easy to hold an average of around 50 kilometers per hour, like the competitors, dry and sunny roads, it's completely another challenge when the asphalt becomes slippery. Even more so when the surface isn't homogeneous and every bend can hide a surprise. When we talk about the exponential influx of the public upon the Monte Carlo Historic, you just have to observe the crowd who've come to welcome the rally in Valence. Thousands of spectators line the Champ de Mars to watch the cars coming into the Parc Fermé this Sunday evening. The applause meter peaks for the Monegasque crew of Olivier Campana and Daniel Elena, remaining on the virtual podium. It's not bad for the moment. We're still here, but we're not in the lead. But anything is possible. Waiting in ambush just behind the Danes Tony Hansen and Per Brodersen and their Audi 80, who put in a great day. Gaps remain very small in the leading pack, with only 60 points between the leaders and their main pursuers. In third place, the Fiat 128 of the Italians Gianmario Fontanella and Stefano Scrivani at 80 points. Fourth, the Opel Kadett GTE of Silvio Perlino and Alessandro Olivieri on 90 points. Ahead of the Ascona 2000 of the Belgians Michel de Cremer and Yannick Albert, who are still within reach of the lead. In the checkpoint near the Peinet kiosk dominating the Champ de Mars, minute by minute more than 300 crews come through at the end of the day. For all, stars or anonymous, this arrival in Valence is a special moment, especially for one of the local lads. It's quite particular because when you start, for example, from Lisbon, you have to make it at least to Valence, because if you can't make it this far, it's a shame. Here there's a big celebration with a lot of people. It's an exceptional moment. We meet old friends from school, from the army, friends from old times. So it's a great communion around the world of motorsport, and above all with the Monte Carlo Historic Rally. In regularity today, there are 320 or 330 people who've started. And from the 320, 330, they all know what to do. They're well equipped with electronics, and the sorting is done through the difficulties they meet. You need snow and ice to slow the special. The reference of the classification in the Ladies' Cup is the German crew of Steffi Edelhoff and Birgit Binder. They've won the women's standing 6 times. The levels increased significantly since a few editions, and women who are engaged in the category this year are all very strong. You just have to look at the results to be convinced. I also think that technology's progressed in the past 20 years. And that's also what explains the rise in the level of competitiveness. The Monte Carlo Historic calls for qualities of driving, but also navigation. It's pretty rare that a competition demands so much on both sides of the cockpit. There are rallies for navigators or drivers, but here it's particularly difficult for both. It's also the end of the day for the CX2400 GTI of Marc Gélibert and Alain Calon, for whom friendship is the primary fuel, and this well before the start of the rally. It's the original engine. It's been reconditioned, as has the clutch. The only modifications we've made is to remove all the unnecessary items like the air conditioning, and we put 2 fuel pumps and the battery in the boot for better balance. We took out the back seat. We've got 2 spare tires permanently with us. It runs really well on the snow, except for this morning. We had a bit of a spin, but that can happen. And on this Sunday evening, it's also time to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally. 20 years history celebrating history. 20 years of partnership and complicity with the cities, departments and regions. Speeches and cake to be consumed without moderation before a good night's sleep. By 7 a.m. on Monday, the first cars are off and running. The regularity zone number 6 meanders from Pont-les, Le Col de Fayolle and Entraigues-sur-Volane. And the openers start attacking from 8 a.m. We're in the Ardèche stronghold of the Monte Carlo Rally, an obligatory stage in the wheel tracks of the legend. Entraigues is another must, where historically the Joanny family offer their apple pies to the competitors. The stop's a must for all those familiar with this unique tradition. And Yves Joanny, the master of the house, a regular rallyman himself, is always at hand to accommodate the guests. The history is written in an ink of friendship, of which Jean Ferrat, a neighbor, could have sung the discreet lines. Hardly time to take a breather, and it's already time to attack a monument among monuments, Burzet, and its snow, ice, and the Burle, the wind of the Ardèche Plateau. But it can also be a lot of fun. But today, it's the fog that comes in to disturb the perception of crews who've embarked upon these kilometers to Le Chambon via another place of pilgrimage, the village of La Champ-Raphael. Those who have rear-wheel drive find it natural to have fun in the snow. The Belgian Michel de Cremer at the wheel of an Opel Ascona, evoking Walter Röhrl, doesn't contradict this. Sylvain Blondeau and Jean-Luc Hassler are also still vying for victory, even if we're a long shot from the very difficult road conditions desired by most of the specialists in this historic rally. The road has been cleared by the first 100 cars, and subsequently the Lada 1500S of the Latvians Agris Stanovics and Janis Kirkavals ties for first in this zone, with the Lancia Fulvia HF of the Spaniards Rafael Fernandez Cosen and Julian Martinez Huarte. Santa Greve's Central Square is bustling with activity on Monday morning. Year-round, Santa Greve Central Square is bustling with activity on Monday morning. It's market day, but on this Monday, there's another major distraction, and it's not only limited to the center of the city. They come not only to replenish the engines with fuel, but also to feed and water the teams that have been on the warpath since dawn. That requires organization and logistics from all points of view. And while this is usually guaranteed by friends and families of the crews, this assistance is becoming increasingly professional. Let's say it's becoming more professional. We manage the weather ahead of time, with the opening cars heading out at 6 a.m. sending back information. And we have an assistance before the start of each special to allow us to put on the right tires. For example, here they're putting on the tires for the second part of the day that will be drier. So we have racing tires that stick better to the road. This morning the tire choice was vital in the first special. Some went out with maxi studs, and with only a bit of ice and a bit of gravel, they slid all over the place. It wasn't the right choice. It's true that the assistance is important and strategic. Very much at his advantage right from the start, the Dane Tony Hansen would not argue with that. He's no longer in the lead, but he's still fighting for victory.
We have made a very big change for this year. We have racing tires with. We only the 4 years we have been with, we have only stud and winter. But the racing tires have been good for the day too. I think it's one of the reasons for the position.
It's a Belgian crew that take the lead tonight, and in the first third of the table, Michel Darteville and Frédéric Mack carry high the colours of a country that's produced some of the best crews in regularity rallies. In 20 years at Monte Carlo, 7 victories have gone to Belgium.
En Belgique,
In Belgium, we have
c'est vrai qu'on a le rallye
rallying in
dans
our
le
blood.
sang.
There's an entire school, and I'm well placed to know about that because I've been rallying classic cars for 25 years, and I've been very much involved in the Viva Passport and the Belgian Federation in the Commission for Historic Competition Vehicles. It's true there are a lot of enthusiasts in Belgium, and it's very close. Sometimes the timing is down to half a second off the ideal time, and here we're working with gaps of just 3 meters. It's very, very professional. And now when there's snow and ice, it's a shame that there's not more snow because we're here for that, but it's all part of the game. I was the first FIFA Marshal for the first Monte Carlo Historic Rally in 1998, and I've done 8 Monte Carlos with NSU, a great car. And here Freddie has prepared a Fiat X19 just for the Monte Carlo. It's a short box, straight pinion and so on, and it goes very well. We have a lot of fun, and I congratulate the organizers because it's huge. And we, little amateurs, are very happy to have the feeling that we're important. With all the marshals here from around the world, we're impassioned by historic cars and automobile history, and being part of that for 1 week is just fabulous.
Du jeu pendant une semaine, c'est fabuleux.
With Daniel Elena, 9-time World Navigators champion, the darling of the public is obviously Jean Ragnotti. His popularity and kindness have never done him wrong, even after 50 years of career. A Jeannot whose nice side never gets old. 50 years ago exactly, in 1967, I debuted in motorsport in a Renault Gordini. That's an interesting anniversary. Fun.
C'est intéressant, amusant.
Fun also to drive, the R8 Gordini which trained a whole generation of drivers. Loeb and Ogier didn't have the chance to drive this one, but the entire family of French rallymen, Franklin, Darniche, Nicolas Taïeb and so on, the whole crew, they all started in the Gordini. And the Renault Gordini, even for those who weren't in the lead, it trained a lot of drivers, because it was a car whose back end moved around a lot, and you had to take care of that. We have to leave Santa Greve to get back on the road for Valence. As the minutes pass, once more the procession heads for the checkpoint at Tournon-sur-Rhône. The return to this, their home region, warms the heart of the Chabon father and son crew. Michel and Louis in a BMW 2002, wearing the colors of the team of chefs. Evidently, the route takes the long way home, passing by Saint-Pierre-sur-Doubs and the Col du Buisson, the title of the next regularity zone, the 8th since the start of the rally. Aurélien and Sylvain Lava in a Mini Cooper S from 1965 are in the top quarter of the classification and take us on board through the mountains of the Ardèche. The British car will remain around the 75th place in the standings right up to the finish line in Monaco. A Peugeot 404 in the Monte Carlo Historic is more of a rarity and almost exotic when we know that this car was manufactured by Peugeot in the Berazategui factory near Buenos Aires in Argentina. She's come nearly 12,000 kilometers to participate in this edition.
Todo un desafío, realmente, un desafío.
It's really a challenge to be here. We had to ship the car on a freighter in November 2016 so that she could reach Barcelona on January the 7th. And also we had to carry assistance and parts. So it was a real challenge. Peugeot began manufacturing in Argentina in 1964 with the 403, then the 404. This is a very solid car that fits the needs of regularity, even if it's far from the ideal for Monte Carlo. We came here without true ambitions, even if we had a lot of success in the Argentine Championship. But here we came to see and to learn, to feel out the event, and to find out how we should run in the Monte Carlo. After the Col du Buisson, the last RZ of the day is Le Mastre Plat via Gilhoc-sur-Ormez. No real trouble on the course and therefore less stress. On this stretch, crossing the village of Gilhoc is recreation for the teams. Firstly, because they're expected, despite the cold and rain, by an audience of fans. And also because it's an opportunity to witness some nice slides to thank them for their loyalty. An anthology of controlled slides that bring us back to the banks of the Rhône. Tournon is at the heart of the vineyards, not far from a renowned chocolate factory, but also attracting here hundreds of enthusiasts for the cars of the Monte Carlo Historic. Prestigious, popular, more or less rare, with or without pedigree, they all attract the curiosity of the passers-by. The historic department of the Spanish manufacturer Seat made the trip this year with a 1430-1600 from 1974. Manufactured under license from Fiat, she has cousins everywhere in the world, in what was then the USSR, but also in Korea, Turkey or India. This Iberian version was already successful in the Principality a few years ago.
It's a
compliant replica of the car that we ran in 1977. That was 40 years ago. Well, this allows us to celebrate the 40th anniversary of our podium in Monaco. The car has the same number on the doors as well. It's a 124D Especial 1800 motor. It's a Group 4 car. It has exactly the same suspension as that time as well, and 4 valves per cylinder in the engine. The power is 155 horses with a synchronized gearbox. It's a pretty efficient and fun car to drive, and it's nice bringing back the crew 40 years after. After this passage in Tournant, the first competitors on the road take the direction of Valence and its Parc Fermé on the Champ de Mars. But let's not forget that the Monte Carlo Historic is represented by more than 300 competitors. At the rate of 1 per minute, this is a parade that lasts 5 hours. We can live very different realities for those committed to a high, intermediate or low average. The only universal reality is the pleasure of the cruise. The navigator of the Alfa Romeo, Willie Cave, holds the record for participations in the rally, no less than 16 times in the historic event, and this year he celebrates his 90th birthday. The day ends on an almost autumnal return to Valence, tomorrow heading south towards Monaco before the night of the Turini. The Col de la Charason in the early morning, in the halo of the headlights of the Saab 97 Sonnet of Pierre Boutinet and Joël Roquet. It's this car that opens this day from 6 a.m. It's the 10th RZ leading to the Cime du Mas. Second part of the common stage, it's also the first leg of our return towards Monaco. Saint-Nazaire-le-Désert, La Motte Chalençon comes almost naturally in its succession of evocative names from the heyday of the Monte Carlo. Obviously, there's a real motivation for the crews who remain in the battle for the good places. And once again, all are doing their best to stay in the average at each moment, despite the tightness of the corners. Among the first to attack the regularity zones, the crews committed to a high average are also in the best-ranked group. Silvio Perlino and Alessandro Olivieri in an Opel Kadett GTE. Tony Hansen and Per Brodersen in an Audi 80 GLE. Michel Decremer and Yannick Albert in the Opel Ascona 2000. The trio of the virtual podium on high average, challenged in the general by Gianmaria Agem and Gianmaria Fontanella, heading for the Principality on a much lower average and much later on the road. We're already in RZ12 between Verclause and Égalité. Jules and Paul Sapé take us with them in their 1978 Golf GTI. They'll finish 63rd in the rally. Out of 275 classified, that's very respectable. No frost or ice over these 37.7 kilometers, but hairpins that require the drivers to attack to maintain their average speed. And that's where the difficulty lies in the exercise, to stay regular at all times, to be in the right place on the road to the last second. And to achieve this, Carlos Tavares, the president of the PSA Group, has swapped his 504 seen in 2016 for a 104 ZS from 1979.
Dans les zones
zone de régularité, eh bien on est à notre
In the
vitesse
regularity zones, we're at our reference speed, so not very fast. Then suddenly there's some hairpins and tight corners that make the average speed untenable. And there you have to wake up and keep the average. It's true that there are regularity zones with a lot of contrast, requiring concentration at all times because it's played out to the last meter when it comes to the positioning of the car, all through the special on the reference speed. The 104 ZS2 weighs 500 kilos less than the 104 Ti, and you can feel the difference on the Ardèche roads. It's about the same power or 10 horsepower more, so overall a very favourable power-to-weight ratio and very agile with a short wheelbase, so really nice for the Monte Carlo.
à toute épreuve, donc c'est une voiture bien plus agréable pour le Monte Carlo.
There are only a few dozen kilometres left to run before finally reaching one of the holy grails of the rally, the return to Monaco at the end of the classification stage and the common stage. From the Drome's Ardèche Mountains, we go to the gorges and the valleys of the Prealps. The Ladies' Cup standings will remain unchanged. Unlucky in the early hours, Tiffany Perlino and Harriet Ross take their Lancia Fulvia to 4th place at the end of a final struggle with the Autobianchi A112 Abarth of Doris Mattei and Therese Soup. The Viking team of Tyne and Torhild Halre in their Beetle 1300S also progress in the final kilometres by taking 2nd place at the expense of the Germans Steffi Edelhoff and Birgit Binder, who thus finish in 3rd position in their Ford Escort RS2000. The suspense lasts till the final hours of the zone for the Spaniards Teresa Almadans and Ana Vives, who place their Golf GTI in the lead of the standings of the Ladies' Cup coming into Monaco. Le Tournée was for us very difficult, with a lack of power for this special. But we'll see what we can do. At the end of the section, it will be victory for the Iberians, who've stuck it out and therefore won the women's standings of this 2017 edition of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally. On the podium, back on the port of Monaco, the essential part of the competition has been completed since their departure from the major cities of the north or the south of Europe. Several thousand kilometers that tested humans and machines. Very much the vocation of the Monte Carlo Rally when it was first created. With an iconic souvenir, a special bottle of wine celebrating the 20th anniversary of the historic rally, drivers and navigators will be able to relax a bit and take a shower before leaving in a few hours to run the zones of the final night. As leader of the general classification, the Belgian Michel Decremer confirms his dominance during this day, and it bodes well for the next few hours. We played very hard in the last RZ. We only had 10 penalty points, so we pushed back those who were getting close to us, and we'll do all we can. Last year we fought back from 14th to 4th. That doesn't mean much, but we'll do all we can for the attack.
Tout ce qu'on peut, full attack.
Until late in the evening, the cars follow each other to the finish of the stage. Everyone crosses under the tent of the Automobile Club of Monaco. Those who just arrived from Valence, and those who are about to head back to the mountains of the backcountry. A big audience comes to admire the competitors and their cars, while victory strategies are being developed. Without a doubt, one will have to keep a watchful eye on the leaders of the middle and low averages for the general classification. We're very satisfied, but experience tells us that while we've done more or less 50% of the work, the night of the tourney is one that decides everything. I think that whoever is in the lead right now is very strong and will defend his position against all odds, and all the others behind will throw themselves into the fight to try to do better, and they are worthy opponents. It will be a great night, I think. While the leaders think of victory, others dream of the finish line, with a consuming passion for Matra and the one and only Jet of the entry list, which follows in the tracks left here half a century ago by a small fleet of her sisters. We wanted to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the participation of 3 factory Matra jets in 1967 by Pescarola Beltoise and Servoz Gavin. It's very close to a 110 Alpine with a steel backbone chassis, polyester bodywork, and a Renault R8 Gordini 1300 engine. The technical particularity of this car is that it has a central engine as opposed to the berlinette, so it's very well balanced. For this model, there were 222 examples at the time, so it's much rarer than a berlinette, but it never had the prize list of the Alpine or the development of the Alpine, but it was a very good car at the time.
C'était vraiment une bonne voiture à l'époque.
Also in the last century, an aunt or cousin of this Mini took Rano Aaltonen to victory at the Monte Carlo Rally in 1967. And it's the Flying Finn who's on board again in 2017. He gets to experience the challenges of a regularity rally, a very different philosophy.
They are two different sports, and in the regularity the co-driver is more important than the driver. And for the driver, I must say, the speed is easier for me. It's quite a long one, and as we all know, anything can happen anywhere. Either my mistake or a car breaks or anything, but we've been lucky and we had no incidents.
Here to symbolically salute the 20th edition of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco finds some old acquaintances, visibly pleased with the good health of one of the Principality's key events. The love story between motorsport and the Principality has existed for a very long time. The first Monte Carlo rallies date from before the first Grand Prix. So I think really it's a celebration of motorsport in general, and these mythical roots of the Monte Carlo, and this so-called Nuit de Turini, or the Night of Turini, for which an infatuation remains over the decades. The proof is in the people we find here and the popularity of the historic rally, because it's a reminder of some great sporting moments.
De très beaux moments de sport.
And others are still to come, with the immediate departure of the first cars in the two last regularity zones of this event. Everyone knows this will be the deciding factor of the 2017 edition. In the coming hours, everything comes into question. The balance of forces so far can be overturned without notice. The tension level's high as the leading cars open the road. Firstly, this RZ13 between Lucéram and Lantosque, less than 27 kilometers, via the Col de Porte and the Col Saint-Roch. With barely 500 points gap between the top 10 of the ranking, none of the leading positions is yet established. Jean-Luc Hassler and Sylvain Blondeau sign the third best time, behind another Ford Escort RS 2000 of Laurent Bouterin and Christian Fine on 50 points. Ambrogio Perfetti and Oscar Rovelli win the special in their Renault Alpine. The leaders, the Belgians, Decremer and Albert, are not in the top 10, perhaps making an error along the way. However, they retain the initiative in the general classification with a short lead. It's the Spanish driver Victor Sagui who wins the next special in a Porsche 911S. Decremer assures the essential. He's the best of the favourites in this sector and takes only 20 extra points. He'll have to wait over long minutes the arrival of the intermediate averages and low averages to confirm victory. At the end of the night, and a great deal of suspense. We're very happy. We were scared right up to the last minute. The engine stalled in RZ13 after a hairpin, and we couldn't restart. Then we roll started, but lost 10 or 15 seconds. We had a reserve of 10 seconds, so we hoped we could manage with that, but we couldn't. We attacked all the time in the last one. We took 40 points, and it was done.
40 points, et là je crois que c'est fait, absolument.
Like the first edition in 1998, won by Patrick Lebon and Robert van der Vorst, 20 years later, it's a Belgian crew that adds its name to the prize list of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally. Over the decades, the event continues to grow. It gets better just like fine wine over the years. Each time, it's always just as legendary, becoming more demanding for men and increasingly challenging for the machines, but with an extra touch of magic which brings people back. And that comes from all the talent of the men and the women of the Automobile Club of Monaco, who are already looking ahead to the 21st edition of the Monte Carlo Historic Rally.
The first flying Finn, the fantastic and incredible Mr. Rauno Aaltonen. Please welcome Willie Cave, Teresa Armadan and Ana Vives from Spain.
Le premier équipage monégasque qui s'est classé au classement général 6e. La voiture numéro 47 de Daniel Elena et Olivier Campana. L'équipage numéro 323 qui termine 25e du classement général. À présent, j'appelle sur scène Paolo Marcatil et Francesco Giamarino. Le 3e du classement général, également vainqueur de la catégorie 3. L'équipage numéro 287, Gian Mario Fontanella et Stefano Scrivani.
Gian Maria Agem and Diego Cumino from Italy on a Lancia Fulvia Coupé.
Le grand vainqueur, le premier du classement général, qui remporte également la catégorie 4 de ce 20e rallye Monte-Carlo historique, Michel De Crémer et Yannick Albert au volant de leur Opel Ascona 2000 de 1979.